All right, today we're going to build a machine, but not one with gears and sprockets. We're talking about a digital growth engine, a complete step-by-step strategy to take your online presence and turn it into real, tangible business results. So let's get this thing built.
Does this sound familiar? You're out there, you're posting, you're connecting, but it just feels like you're not getting any traction. So, how do you actually turn a like or a connection online into a real-world client? That's the exact problem we're going to solve right now. And here's our game plan. It's a clear, four-part framework. First, we're going to build your foundation, your professional hub. Then, we'll fuel up the engagement engine. After that, we'll get into the good stuff, converting those connections into clients. And finally, the part that keeps it all running smoothly, how to measure, refine, and repeat the whole process.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, building your professional hub. Seriously, think of this as your digital headquarters. Your LinkedIn profile is your first impression, your online business card, and getting this right is absolutely crucial for everything else that follows.
So, what goes into a killer hub? It really comes down to these 4 pillars. First, a professional picture. First impressions happen at a split second. Next, a headline that's all about the value you bring. Then, a summary that clearly shows what problems you solve. And finally, and this is the one most people miss, you've got to keep it updated to show you're still in the game.
Now check this out because this slide really gets to the heart of it. A weak headline just says what you are, sales manager. Okay, but the strong headline, it tells people who you help and how you help them. It's not a job title, it's a solution, it's a promise. And that is what makes a potential client stop scrolling.
And, your profile isn't something you just set and forget. It's a living, breathing thing. You got to keep it fresh with new skills and accomplishments. But look at that third point, requesting recommendations. That, right there, is pure gold. It's social proof. It builds trust way faster than anything you could ever write about yourself.
So, let's move on to Section 2. Once your hub is looking sharp, it's time to fuel your engagement engine. This is where we shift from having a static page to creating a dynamic presence that actually pulls people in and gets them talking. So is there a magic number for how often you should post? Well, yeah, there kind of is. The sweet spot is right around 3 to 5 times a week. That's frequent enough to keep you on people's radar, but not so much that you start to become annoying noise in their feed. It's all about that balance.
Okay, so what in the world do you actually post about? Well, it's all about giving value. Sure, long-form posts make you look like an expert, and sharing news shows you're on top of things, but that third one, adding your personal insight, that's the secret sauce. That's what gets a real conversation started and makes people want to connect with you.
And listen, growing your network is not about collecting contacts like they're baseball cards. It's about making real connections. Personalize every single request you send. Don't just be a drive-by clicker. And remember, it's a two-way street. Liking and commenting on other people's stuff is one of the absolute best ways to get your own name out there.
All right, on to Section 3, and this is where the rubber meets the road. It's time to connect all this effort to your bottom line, converting connections to clients. You've built the hub, you've fueled the engine, now let's steer this thing towards some real business.
First thing you have to understand, especially in the business-to-business world, is that this is a marathon, not a sprint. As this timeline shows, it's a process. You have to find the right person, figure out what their problem is, show them how you can solve it, handle their questions, and then, finally, you can talk about closing a deal. It takes patience.
So, the most critical part of that whole process is right here, uncovering their pain points. Notice this has nothing to do with you pitching your product. It's about you being a detective. You ask smart questions and then, and this is key, you just shut up and listen. Really listen. Once you know their pain, then you can present your solution. And this is a perfect example of how to do it. See how it's not about features? It's about the outcome. It directly addresses the pain of wasted time and connects the solution to a real business win, closing more deals. That's powerful. Because at the end of the day, B2B sales almost always comes down to trust. People buy from experts they trust to solve their problems. And all that hard work we talked about in the first 2 sections, building your profile, sharing amazing content, that wasn't just for show. It was for this exact moment, to prove you're an expert, not just another salesperson.
And that brings us to our final section, measure, refine, repeat. Because any good engine needs a dashboard, right? You need data to tell you what's working so you can do more of it, and what's not so you can fix it or ditch it. and your main dashboard is already built right into LinkedIn. It's called Analytics. Honestly, this is your secret weapon. It stops you from guessing what works and starts showing you exactly who's checking you out and what content is actually making them stop and pay attention. A simple chart like this tells you everything you need to know. You can see in a second that sharing industry news is getting you tons of engagement, but maybe those personal stories aren't hitting the mark. This isn't a feeling, it's data. So what do? You double down on sharing industry news with your own unique take. Simple.
And hey, here's a pro tip. Once you find a piece of content that really works, a total winner, don't just leave it on LinkedIn. Amplify it, share it on other platforms where your audience hangs out. It's a great way to maximize your reach and pull even more people into your growth engine.
So let's wrap this all up. Your 4-step growth engine. It starts with building that solid, credible professional hub. Then you fuel it with consistent, valuable content. You convert connections by becoming a problem solver, not a pitcher. And you keep the whole thing running better and better by measuring your results, refining your strategy, and doing it all over again.
So there you have it. The blueprint is laid out. The steps are clear, the engine is designed, and it's ready for you to build. So the only question left is, what's your first move going to be?